Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
Well, welcome everyone to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education. Jerri, you're a friend today. It looks like and you have a nice little beverage. Look at that. One iced, one hot. Okay, what's going on here today?
Well, Jamie, let me tell you, I'm at my favorite coffee house, and I discovered this place last year. Some teachers invited me here. And as I got to talking to the owner, Kelli Huslig, who is with us today, our guest, I found out that Kelli's a former educator. And I spent a lot of time here. And as I was here, I would hear Kelli having meetings with her staff. I would witness a lot of things going on here that kind of reminded me of school in a way. And then I would have a lot of conversations with Kelli about lessons that maybe she brought from the schoolhouse and lessons that we could take from the coffee house back to the schoolhouse.
Brilliant.
Coffee. I said, Kelli, this would be a great podcast for us to talk about those lessons. Like, what did you bring with you? What can we learn from the coffee house? Because I think there's a lot to learn here. So welcome, Kelli.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Oh, we're so happy to have you on. So tell us a little bit about your background, first of all. Okay.
So I was an educator for many years. I started out teaching in the special ed area. And so I taught there for several years. And then I taught third grade for about 9 years, something like that. Then moved and taught junior high school combination, and kind of wrapped up my career in education by leading a small private school here in Lawrence for 10 years. And then following my time there, I decided to go and kind of do part of my dream, which was to own a coffee shop. And so that's kind of very quickly my journey with education. So I was in it for a long time and loved every minute of it and enjoyed it. But also I'm enjoying my brand new career here in the coffee shop area.
Well, that's so exciting. And Jerri, I think that you have posted pictures of you having doing your work at the coffee shop, right?
Yes, I'd love to come here to work.
I bet it sounds, and from the pictures you've shown, I bet it's very inspirational. I bet.
Yes, and she has an indoor space that you can use and an outdoor space. And we prefer the outdoor space.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. And we wanted to really have the podcast from the outdoor space, but we didn't have the Wi-Fi and the wind today.
The wind,
Kansas.
Kansas.
Yes.
Oh, well, we can't mess your hair up. So that wouldn't be good. Kelli, what do you think that Jerri is referring to when she says, when she is, eavesdropping, I guess, quite frankly.
I am.
What do you think she is identifying as things that mimic the classroom?
I think that part of what I loved the most about education was establishing relationships with those that you're working with, and how key that piece is. And I think that, for teachers, we naturally do that with our students. I think that an area of growth that I found, at least when I became an administrator, was making that switch to also developing those relationships with parents, community members, and all of those different kinds of things. But as I moved into the coffee shop realm, that was a key component, is really developing relationships and getting to know my customers, which I absolutely love. And it's a passion of mine. And so when people ask me, they're like, wow, why did you go from school to coffee shop? Really the base is the same. It's all about people and loving people well. So that, I think, is probably the key component.
Well, and I just want to say, when I had this aha moment that she brought some things from school here, she was having a staff meeting, I believe it was, in the booth behind me. It reminded me of a morning meeting, Jamie.
Okay, lovely.
She was talking to all of her staff she wasn't doing the talking. They were. They
Mhm.
were throwing out ideas and she was listening and she was empowering them. And it was so amazing because I could tell she's not a micromanager. She wanted
Right.
to hear what they had to say. They were talking about social media. She was like, yeah, like, what are you thinking? And they were tossing the ideas out and you were just empowering them, just moving them forward. And I loved it.
I think we, as teachers, that is one of our natural gifts, is to ask great questions um, and to listen. And I will tell you, over and over and over again, the staff that I've had, even though it changes, I learn from them all the time.
Mhm.
And as a teacher, I remember learning from my students, whether it was those little third grade students or it was my junior high school students. Um, they always brought pieces to the table that I could learn from. And I think the more we approach that, the more that we're willing to hear and learn and grow from, whether it's students or other teachers or coffee shop, and customers that come in. I just think it's a better place to be when
Yeah.
we're in that mindset of growth. So
I think it's the leadership that you bring too, because you have to have that willingness, as you mentioned. You have
right,
to have that open-mindedness to be able to let go, because a lot of it is letting go.
right,
But it's about building those relationships and then also trusting those relationships.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's hard. And there are
Yeah.
going to be some times when it doesn't work out so well.
Right.
But overall, big
Yes.
picture, when we are able to risk and be willing to step outside that box a little bit and listen and learn from others, and that's when we can truly grow as a coffee shop owner, as well as a teacher, I think. And
And and one of the things about coming to Uplift, and I love the name.
Oh, yeah, I didn't get the name. It is a great name.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
Uplift.
Yeah.
It's great. And the logo is
It's the
just
caffeine. It's the building, the networking, and the relationships that are happening within the coffee shop. I like it.
thank you. Yes.
right.
But the customer service here is wonderful. And it begins with Kelli coming table to table, visiting with you, recognizing if you don't want to visit or if
Right. There are times.
Yeah. She sees that. But I asked her, how do you instill that in your employees? And you told me about those personal meetings you.
Right.
So,
Right.
want to talk about that?
Sure.
That's great.
Absolutely. So once a month, we do a brew crew meeting. And that's where we all come together as a staff, and we go over those day-to-day changes, of course, right? Just like you would normally do in any other thing. But then it's also a time of growth for us, of me listening to them and them bringing to the table issues that they see. And it's not always easy to hear the different issues. And sometimes there are times when I can't solve the issues, or I want to solve them, but maybe financially I can't solve those issues. But at least for me to hear those issues are important. And then to talk about the different customers that we've met. And that's a time where we get to know, okay, who are the people that are walking through our doors? Anybody giving suggestions that we need to think about or hear about, or anybody having issues, maybe they don't like something. Let's hear about that. It's just a great time for us to really practice, how do we make people feel at home while we're here? What are some of the issues we need to address so that people do feel at home? All those different pieces kind of come together during our brew crew meeting. And
I
then,
love that. It's like gathering the analytics that you need, but doing it through dialogue.
right.
I love it. I love it.
And it's also a great time for us to know if there's a customer that we all kind of need to be trying to cheer up. Like if we hear from several different people, hey, I haven't seen this customer for a while. If they do come through the door, we need to make sure we acknowledge them and kind of check on them and make sure they're okay. So the whole mission at Uplift is really, how can we make whoever walks through that door, their day just a little bit better, no matter what they're walking through. And that was one of my pieces as a classroom teacher as
I
well.
was just going to say, I mean, you are a teacher at heart,
Right.
and it will never leave you.
No.
You bring it into everything that you do.
Right. Yes. Those of us that are teachers, it's in our blood.
I know.
And so, we never knew, I would never know what my student might have gone through that night. But their time in my classroom was going to be hopefully the best that it could be.
Right.
And hopefully I could send them home in a better place if they had a bad morning or whatever. And so it's the same thing with my customer. And I really feel like my staff really takes that on and embodies that as well. Like, I really feel like every single staff member that I have had and I have currently, they love people. And that's a key component for me.
And you look for that when hiring.
Right. Everybody deserves a great smile and a great welcome. And that's important. It goes back to Simon Sinek talks a lot about know your why. About whatever you're doing.
Right.
And I've read that book, love that book. And the why for me is relationships. Right? Why I'm doing what I'm doing is all about building relationships. How I'm doing that is through great service, great coffee, great food. So the important thing for me first and foremost was that I had places and niches within my coffee shop and outside that promoted a place for conversation and relationship building. And that's the important piece for me. So the outside space specifically really allows for kind of things to go by the wayside and for you to be able to focus on who you're with.
Yeah.
And that was important.
Yeah. I think you mentioned the book. Obviously that's carried through because the success of what you are doing now is really based in your intentionality in here. You weren't just coming like, oh, I would love to have my own business. That really wasn't what this was about.
No. And it wasn't about great coffee because I can make great coffee at home. Right. I love great coffee.
Yes.
But for me, it's more about building relationships and allowing others to build relationships and providing that piece,
that place.
Yeah. And we do that over a cup of coffee. Let's go get a cup of coffee.
Right.
Let's try to figure this out. Let's relax. Let's get a cup of coffee.
Right.
Yeah. Let's go to Uplift.
A lot of things get solved. We sit down with somebody and have a cup of coffee and
write ideas on a napkin.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we talked about, obviously your influences from education totally, completely mirror what you are doing as a business owner, as a leader, as a mentor, as a friend to your customers. So we see that. But Jerri also mentioned how a lot of what you're doing could also be brought back to the classroom. So we know the building relationships, we see that. What else do you feel, or Jerri, you can share what your thoughts were, or Kelli, what you see?
Right. Well, so one of the things I see is just, Kelli kind of reminds me of that teacher as you walk in the door, that being greeted every morning, making me feel like we're so happy you're here. Welcome. What's going on? How are you? That I think just gives kids a welcome environment and makes you feel like I want to be here and she cares about me. Right. That can make all the difference in the world. And I think one of the things people always wonder, how do you start a relationship? And one time someone told me this key little phrase, and I think it's so important, because if you don't know what to say, I noticed. I noticed you wear this color a lot. It really looks pretty on you. That's all you have to say.
Right.
Or I noticed you wear a lot of cheap clothing. Do you wear
Yes, right.
just notice something about people. That's all you have to do to start a relationship.
Right.
And so I think that's really important. A couple of other lessons I've noticed from her is that brew. What do you call it? The brew crew. The brew crew. Spending that time as a little family together, right? The morning meeting or whatever that is, and listening to them. And then she spends a lot of time onboarding each employee, spending time with them personally, letting them know this is what our culture is. This is what the expectations are. This is how we expect you to act when you're here at work. I think if every teacher took a little time to say, this is the culture of our classroom, this is how we expect you to behave here, we really don't do that. That's something I think we could do.
Right.
And if we do, a lot of times as a teacher, I feel like we have the best of intentions in September. And then as things start rolling along in the year, we just have to like get through things. And I think, making it part of the routine as you do, Kelli, make sure that it's happening regularly so that it doesn't, other things that are coming at you and requirements and all of those things aren't bogging you down and derailing really what's important. Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
Right. And the other thing is establishing spaces within your classroom to create partnerships,
Right.
niches that you can sit in and talk and
move to, to change that. So
flexible seating, yes, and kinesthetic, yeah.
Yes,
Absolutely.
there's so many things you can bring from the coffee shop.
Right.
To
Absolutely.
the classroom.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are there things that now you wish you knew then as a leader?
Oh, yeah.
Right. I actually think the importance of listening and having a positive greeting, even when you're uneasy about something, let's say you have to have a difficult conversation. But if you can first and foremost remember them, that they're walking through the door as a person just like you are, right?
Yeah.
And what they've been through that day. And really starting with a greeting of warmth and I'm glad to see you. We may have difficult things to talk about, but I'm glad to see you. And I'm excited for us to be together during this time.
Right.
Could really change.
I feel seen, heard, and valued. And we keep hearing this in a lot of our podcasts. This is also part of cultural responsiveness. And it's also, Jerri and I say it all the time, building relationships is such a thread in our podcast. It's a theme that we see over and over and over again with people who are successful with in education and beyond and in life. And but it does take a lot of thought and time. And I think that listening component that you said is really what drives it. Have to be a good
listener. And I think we're in such a rushed society yet. And we want to get things done quickly because we have a lot on us. But I think it's important to put the relationship back first over the checklist. And very true. And if we can shift that will help. And I just think the more that the other thing that I think is important is teachers. I would say this is a key piece that I learned.
Yes.
It's hard to share with people when you don't like something. So let's go to the coffee shop. You get a mocha. It's terrible. It's awful, right? It's not easy to go up there and say something's wrong with this. Right. Like you kind of, most customers will apologize. Oh, I'm really sorry. I hate to tell you this, but something doesn't taste right. So one of the things that I learned from that I wish I would have known is it's actually hard to complain.
Yes, it is.
It's actually hard to bring a concern.
Not for everybody, but yes, no.
But for some people it is.
Yes, it is.
We need to, if we think that through, when they come with that, be willing to hear it.
Yes.
That's a great point. Yes, for some, it took a lot of courage to get there.
Right. And they, I've noticed that over and over. And so I tell my baristas, I'm like, if somebody's going to take the time to come and share with you one-on-one, then we can learn from it, right? Because people are so quick to write about it.
Yeah.
out
anonymously.
right.
Right.
So if we can thank them for that,
Right.
it can sometimes flip it.
But I also feel like you are building this nurturing environment so people feel comfortable, not necessarily complaining, but giving that feedback, but giving
Right.
that. So I think you have to have that environment in order for people to have that comfort level too. And
Right.
it sounds
And
like
you
you're
have to
doing
thank them, even if it was hard to hear.
Right.
Right.
Right. And sometimes too, I know as a teacher, sometimes I would just dismiss what they were saying.
Right.
You don't.
Right.
You don't.
Right.
This is the whole thing. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yes. So that's
Right.
yeah. That's a
And you're
great.
doing the same thing in your brew crew morning meeting time
Right.
too,
Right.
right? You're
Right.
asking your staff for that feedback as
Yes.
well. And building your thick skin as well,
Not always easy to hear.
Yeah.
Yay. You really have to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes. Yes. It's true.
So that you can move forward. And
Right. Right.
that's how we grow.
Right. And just because somebody's going to bring it doesn't mean that it will
Change.
Right. Right. Because, people are not going to know every single aspect that goes into something, right?
Right.
Just like in the classroom.
Yes.
But maybe there's something that we can do to make it better.
Right. Absolutely. Do you have a lot of are you near school at all? Do you have a lot of teachers who are customers?
I would say I probably do have several, especially during the summer. And the summer is when I get to see them because my hours during the school year, some of them,
hours.
right,
Yeah.
sometimes swing through, like they have the app, so they order ahead and they run in and they grab something and leave. But I get to talk with them during the summer.
Yes.
Right. So you do have an app for convenience, even though you want them to come in and you have this environment, you're suiting all customers and you do have the convenience app. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
So you do have to.
With those, sometimes it's a fun little message on their cup, or
Oh,
something like
yes.
to kind of,
That's so great.
yeah.
Yes.
There you
Look for
go.
those little areas where you can still connect.
To make those connections. Yes. Brilliant. Oh, I love it. I have a really important question though. What are each of you drinking right now?
I'm actually drinking just my drip coffee right now in the afternoon.
Keep it simple.
So, yeah, but I start my morning with an Americano every day.
Okay.
So that's what
All
I
right.
Yes.
What do you have there, Jerri?
Vanilla latte. Right now I'm having a iced chai with oat milk.
There you go.
Yummy. Very yummy. It's funny because I would need that uplift too, but I have this allergy to caffeine. So I always have to. Do you have a lot of decaffeinated options too?
I do. And in fact, our lemonade, frozen lemonades, we have lots of those different kinds of drinks as well. So, yeah.
And then they always have, this is another thing you can take to the classroom. They always have a variety. They have a flight.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I saw the picture of the flights. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So they'll have a flight of drinks.
Yes.
And it's just
So you can sample it. Yeah.
Let me tell you, I'm a sucker for flights. Because I'm an indecisive person. So I love to have those options. I love to try new things. I love flights.
And
Love
it's
them.
great conversation piece.
It is. And they have cute names.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really fun. But I love this conversation because I think it really gives you some concrete examples of how you build those relationships and how you can take these lessons and put them into any part of your life.
Right.
And, be in the classroom or your living room.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Right. But it's all about connecting with people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It is building those relationships. I love it. Jerri, I thought this was brilliant of you to determine this. Obviously, you do bring your work there a lot because this was part of your normal routine and you really made those connections quite well. And I am so thankful that you brought Kelli on to share all of this with us. This was really fun. Really great.
It was fun.
Me too. We'll have to work on that for another time. Very good. Cheers. I have my water, but there we go. Enjoy your afternoon, ladies.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify and subscribe to us on YouTube.